Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the webinar on Continuous Improvement 2.0. My name is Dolores Serafin, and I work for Alberta Agriculture and Irrigation with the Food and Bioprocessing branch. I will be your host for today's webinar. Before we start, here are a few housekeeping items. If you would like to ask a question, please click on the question mark symbol at the top right of your screen. I will make sure our presenters address all the questions at the end of the presentation. You will also see a react symbol at the bottom left of your screen. This allows you to show your reactions to anything being said during the webinar. This webinar is being recorded and a link will be sent to you in an email after the live webinar. John Preiditsch, President at 6S Partners ERP Consulting, Shawn Ang, Director of Data and Analytics at Alberta Innovates, and Wayne Arondus, Chief Operating Officer at Manufacturing Safety Alliance of BC, will present information to continue your journey on continuous improvement. These industry speakers will focus on three areas of improvement: data engineering and software development, which includes services to businesses who are experiencing complex problems, organizational change, or are seeking proactive solutions for digital transformation. Enterprise resource planning, which includes resources to manage day-to-day business activities involved in your operations from different perspectives. And safety assessment, advice, and training, which includes risk assessments and identifying potential hazards in a systematic method with ongoing implementation of the measures and protocols to improve the safety in your continuously changing workplace. Overall, you will learn how these processes will add benefits to your business through the reduction of accidents, improved morale, enhanced satisfaction of employees, increased productivity and efficiency, reduced absenteeism and staff turnover, and improved business reputation and credibility among stakeholders. John Preiditsch is the president at 6S Partners ERP Consulting and has over 35 years of enterprise resource planning, also known as ERP experience, helping manufacturers improve their operation and gain control of their profitability with ERP. John is a 17-year Epicor Kinetic partner. He is also the most awarded partner in the Epicor ERP ecosystem. John has engaged and helped over 1,000 companies in North America. He is a global leader in deploying Epicor ERP for small and mid-market companies, and he has a passion for the people side of the business improvement. John also has a business admin background as well as Six Sigma and CPIM. Shawn Ang is a seasoned data strategy and governance leader with nearly 2 decades of experience in the field. Currently, he is serving as the Director of Data and Analytics at Alberta Innovates. Shawn's vision is to enable the organization to be able to govern and leverage data effectively across the organization and manage data more effectively. Prior to this role, Shawn held key positions including Managing Principal of Data Services at Tantus Solutions Group, Assistant Vice President of Data Enablement and Governance at Canada Life, and Head of Data at Brightside. His experience spans data strategy, governance, data fluency, and high-impact consulting. Shawn's academic background includes an MBA in Strategy and Technology Management from Athabasca University. He is also certified in Risk Management, Change Management, and Lean Six Sigma. Throughout his career, Shawn has consistently been able to develop and execute innovative data strategies, optimize data usage, and foster data-driven culture within organizations. His commitment to leveraging data for strategic decision-making and continuous improvement has resulted in improvements in organizational efficiency and growth. Wayne Arondus is the Chief Executive Officer of the Manufacturing Safety Alliance of BC. Wayne is an experienced leader in all areas of manufacturing, operations, and supply chain. A proven sales and marketing leader, Wayne has led multiple manufacturing businesses serving the retail and wholesale channels. He joined the Alliance as Chief Operating Officer in 2019. A teacher, mentor, and community supporter, Wayne is the president of the Canadian Mental Health Association for the Vancouver Fraser Valley Board of Directors. He's the vice chair of a Make-A-Wish BC and Yukon chapter and faculty of BC Institute of Technology in the Operations Management Department. He is the past chair of the Habitat for Humanity Canada Board of Directors. As well, Wayne has served on the board of the Canadian Manufacturers and Exporters and was a member of the 8th Governor General's Canadian Leadership Conference of Canada. I will now hand it over to John to start us off.
Well, thank you very much. Well, good morning. My name, as you know, is John Preiditsch, and in preparing for this morning, I thought, let's get to the root of where, a company, any individual in a company is, and that is trying to help their business move forward. So today, we're going to cover a few topics. So let's jump right into our agenda. So in talking about continuous improvement, we can't help but think about some of the elements that are the foundations to put a program of continuous improvement in place. And so I'd like to take you through some of the background, get into continuous improvement elements, and then how do we put CI or continuous improvement into action. We don't need this slide, as I was properly and thankfully introduced in terms of my background. My bias is that I think of things as far as systems and processes. Part of that is just having watched the evolution of technology over my 35 years in ERP. A quick background on who we are, and we'll move right into it. So my company was founded in 2007 with the idea that we needed to really focus on the business elements that help businesses improve. And so enterprise resource planning, as many might know, includes everything from quote to cash. It now involves portals and quality. So enterprise, running the enterprise logistically, financially, and through quality and compliance. So we believe in the foundations of people, process, and technology, and helping our clients grow and scale their business. And this is just a sampling of our customers and their locations. And we do have a specialty in the process industry, so think food, beverage, nutraceuticals, and dairy and pharma. So we had that program up with Epicor with our value-added capabilities. So let's launch into our topic today. So at the foundation of every business, every manufacturing company, and really if you think about it, every company needs to cost, track, and schedule their resources. And so you need to help understand your costs, the elements of labor, any outside processing. You need to optimize the use of those resources through people and equipment and technologies. But the visibility that is required for today's manufacturers is unprecedented. The idea that you should be able to answer questions very quick, possibly even open up portals for your clients and stakeholders to check on status, traceability elements, whatever. These are creating that confidence in your customer base and in your stakeholders to be able to, whether it be as simple as relying on a delivery date or more complex such as a recall or managing the elements of your commitments. So, with that foundation, we think about, well, what is it that any kind of continuous improvement program might need? And at the heart of that would be, well, the definition is really a transformation. We are going to transform our business, balancing that people, process, and technology, and coming out with an outcome that improves a new level of productivity and performance. But to do that, we need to innovate. And so simply calling anything an innovation, it needs to have some improvement. It needs to be much more than just incremental. It doesn't have to be, but the high value, the worth investing in terms of time and effort, needs to see some sort of payback. And when we think about innovation, it's leapfrogging and kind of jumping way ahead and bypassing some of the problems of the past. And so when you think about continuous improvement, it's the payback that is continuous. It's always providing a return on investment. And so thinking of your business with innovation and creating a culture of innovation and the desire of innovation, if you think about it, it's adopting new capabilities. And so there's a proven law out there called Martek's Law. And so while these technologies show up in our inboxes and our emails and our adverts online as opportunities to explore new ways to be productive, we're inundated. I don't know about you, but there's constantly an app for that. And so individually we might be able to adopt quickly, and some of us are quick adopters, others may not be. What we do know is that organizations do not move at the same speed. And, management has to pick and choose. But over time, if we are not evolving, if we are not improving, if we're not using an innovation strategy to move the business forward, we find ourselves at a very slow pace and often eclipsed or leapfrogged by other companies or other organizations who invest in the right technologies. And so what we do know is if you're serious about being relevant, being profitable, your stakeholders seeing value in what you're doing as a business, we're really talking about competitive advantage here. And so we really believe that there's a real opportunity. So ultimately, this transformation, this idea that I need to move my business forward, whether it be incrementally from where I am or drastically improve the rate of change and the improvements and the opportunity to consider these new capabilities, it is a change management challenge. And so I'm a big fan of change. It's a passion of mine. And the idea that change management is now where 15 years ago, or even greater, you wouldn't start a project without a project manager. Today, using a change manager or a person who is responsible for looking after the organizational changes and its impact and keeping people aligned and ready for that change is now becoming more and more in focus. And so as we think about this, everybody reacts to change differently. So if let's consider a bigger project in change, we're going to massively overhaul a production line, improve with new business systems. That's kind of where I live, so I see this every day. But everybody's gung ho, and then all of a sudden it's the decision time, and there'll be some people that don't move along as quickly, and they might be denying the change. It might be a matter of, wow, I'm not sure, are they really going through with this? And then, the idea that, man, this is going to cost the company a lot. Should we even bother with this? This seems like it's expensive. But they go from this positive place to a bit of a free fall. And they might even bargain to say, do I need to participate really? Do you want me in there when I'm really needed for this special customer situation? And so that's challenging. And then as people come through this trough, this lower level, they're going to go through a little bit of depression. Oh man, how do I get out of this? How do I make my way through? And ultimately, it is the job of everyone involved in the project to help those people through to get to an acceptance, moving on, and ultimately becoming more productive than they were. See, most people want to do a good job for you in their business, in your business. But when you introduce this change, everybody goes through it, but they go through it differently. And they may think of job, fear of job, and this zone of indifference is really what we need to address. Because people will, without a good reason, if they don't understand the why and what we're doing and what's in it for me, what's going to change and what's not going to change, they're going to go into this funk called the Valley of Despair. And if they stay there, they might start wanting to bail out of the project. Or they may comply and just mail it in, as they say, not really commit themselves. So again, my passion about change management does show up in the world of continuous improvement. So, the definition is a company-wide approach focused on identifying, addressing, and enhancing processes and practices. Ultimately, why would we want to do this? And how do we approach this? Well, we're looking for anything from small incremental changes that can lead to greater changes. There's big benefits, efficiency and productivity. It promotes innovation, employee engagement, and definitely strengthens customer satisfaction and loyalty. When your stakeholders see what you're doing and they see the improvements you're making, they feel like they're being taken care of. And so when they have the choice to vote with their dollars, they're going to choose you. So continuous improvement is really there for everyone. It's for staff and management. And ultimately, we need to consider that getting staff involved is table stakes, right? We want people involved, but we also need some frameworks. We'll talk a bit more about that in a moment. But these people have been working for your organization perhaps for a long time or possibly new to the company, and it's quite evident that people will become frustrated with inefficiencies. But allowing people to get past that's a decision that's above my pay grade and getting them involved, I think there's some real strength in culture and building your business and getting those insights from the front line. Ultimately, it helps enhance leadership, and there really, in order to spend the time and effort, there has to be a return on investment. And so many might have a perspective that, geez, we're putting a lot of people in a meeting. That meeting seems to be, uh, maybe not worthwhile, and I don't know what they're doing in there. I think it's really important that you consider that, in fact, it is very valuable. So that power of collaboration, it's about really breaking down the silos, building that culture, and creating some problem solving and thinking, group think around everybody's approach and everybody's perspective. And so with change management, the injection here is to allow people to be heard so that they feel like they're part of it. They don't always have to be right, and they need to learn together, but they also need to learn of what other people's perspectives are so that there isn't just one answer. And so what are some of those real life or real world impacts? Ultimately, if I throw out a couple examples here, inefficient task assignments, when people looked at automating certain processes, when you involve the people, you could save 20% of the time on routine tasks. And ultimately, looking at those process automation opportunities, there's value. At a management level, not having the right information, the right data, those key performance indicators or KPIs, ultimately having dashboards and being able to see what's going on in the business and making that transparent means faster data-driven decisions. It means, that you can actually move quicker and build those improvement strategies, ultimately delivering for your customer and your business. Well, let's monetize that. Some real big names out there. Toyota, obviously, the Toyota principles, continuous improvement is really important to their culture, but $200 million annually when they improved manufacturing and lean manufacturing in their organization and adopted a strategy. 50 million for Merck in their operation when they reduced waste and delays in their manufacturing. Tesla in 2022 saved 114 million just reducing labor costs and streamlining the production of a model of their product. And so whether you be in automotive, med, pharma, automotive cars seem to be the leaders of lean, but it is something that everyone can adopt. A good friend of mine, Linamar CEO and now chairman of the board, Linda Hassenfratz, just recently told me that through some of the cultural approaches that her father had originally given her in terms of imparting this need for continuous improvement and driving waste out of the business, they've just recently found an example, just one example, that would pay for 3,000 homes in terms of the electricity saved at one of their plants. And this was huge because there's a lot of waste that is hidden. And so, some of the things she's tackling are sometimes as simple as, why can't we turn off that conveyor or that machine? The machine control OEM doesn't allow us to do it, and I'm taking them on because there's no point of spending that electricity if I don't need it. So, she's carrying on that focus, and it's a real proof that culture really trumps everything when it comes to running your business. And so their leadership includes solar panels on plants and using resources wisely. Food companies, just to keep it relevant here, General Mills had an annual cost of $7 million when they put energy efficient lighting and equipment upgrades throughout their organization. That's huge. Pepsi achieved annual savings of $200 million. So I could go on and on here, but the idea is there are some real life opportunities, whether you're a small startup or a company of scale or one that is a multinational organization. So let's break this down. The simple framework for continuous improvement and creating that culture and that environment is to really encourage the identification of those opportunities, review and analyze them, develop them into solutions, get people talking about what are the different options we have, evaluate the impact. You know, nothing really happens in terms of improvement unless you can measure something. I think that's going to be an overarching topic here. And then ultimately iterate. So, you know, is good enough good enough? And should we revisit that? Let's come back and measure it. And what often happens is that something additional will pop up and more solutions become evident as we start to observe and measure this. So the foundations of continuous improvement, or at least continuous improvement 2.0, really has its roots in the Toyota way. And so there is a book, The Toyota Way. And I encourage anybody who's interested in lean to consider reading it. But ultimately, continuous improvement in the Toyota way is called Kaizen. And it's this creating continuous improvement, getting those small ideas into positive changes, and again, iterating. And so we standardize with the new approach. We then look for new problems, measure, hypothesize, test, implement the new way of doing it, and keep going. And so these could be more than just a one-dimensional one thing in the company. This could be departments. So think about each department looking at how they could improve. You know, there's different techniques, and the Toyota Way offers lots of different approaches that are very applicable to many industries. So if you haven't, I would consider looking at that a little deeper. So when we break this down a little further, some of the tools and methods that get used in a continuous improvement program is first off that mindset. So this is more about people, getting people on board with how your culture can seek these things out, and often needs quite a bit of leadership oversight. So why are we doing this? And how do we get people thinking this way? And getting them into a lean thinking mode. So first off, enabling people to believe that they can affect this change is really powerful. And then further to that, it would be, you know, looking at some data measurements of how will we get these improvements prioritized? Is it worth fixing? You know, and understanding the root cause, getting into what the elements of impact are, and then getting some feedback. Well, if we change this, what would happen? How would that affect you? And ultimately, again, getting the people involved who are doing the job, or as they say in lean, go to the gemba, go to where it is happening, involve some of those people so they feel part of the change. Again, if you want adoption, it's about involving those people. So, and then, you know, what are we applying to fix this? What is some of the strategies we could use? And, you know, in the year 2024 and beyond, I don't have to tell you that there are technologies out there, obviously, that can help automate. And, you know, my bias on that is ERP is an all-seeing and all-encompassing capability that a company can start out small with, but it could be as simple as measuring and managing. And you could start some CI programs with a spreadsheet. But when data starts to get to be a challenge, measurability and ownership for one version of the truth, often you need more of a shared common database. So I mentioned it earlier, if I haven't, it's about leadership, really. I mean, leaders first must model that mindset of improvement, seeking out those opportunities. But then we need to empower staff and really provide some tools and autonomy. You know, go out and do some things, looking for those opportunities, and then bring it back and bring back part of that cycle. Here's what we propose. This is our hypothesis. This is what we think could bring value. And so visible leadership who sponsors this and then gets presented to with these opportunities for savings can be extremely valuable. It's great for your culture. People feel more in tune with what's going on in the business. They feel more valued. They've been heard, And again, not all solutions or suggestions will be implemented. And I think that needs to be as much part of the culture and mindset, but then really valuing this with a regular review and celebrate those wins as you achieve them. Much the way, you know, Linamar shared with me their improvements and what they accomplished and what it means to the business. So I mentioned it earlier that change management's a big part of this. And so there's always this resistance to change. I've got a full job. My whole job description is full. I don't have time for this. I'm not sure of the value of this to us. And that could be something from the management or an operations or a mid-level management role. They might feel that way. I've seen this. I've seen it fail. It's not probably going to work here. Those are challenges. And so getting people involved in the roots of the team, helping them understand the why and the benefits, and then helping them understand their role in it, I think that really makes a big difference. And so starting to show them that you're trying to measure the business and you can't stay in business long unless we address these concerns and improvements. So ultimately, this is about a call to action. It's not a project. It's not a one and done project. It is a journey, and I know that's a little cliche, but really getting your team simply to identify what's not working, propose solutions, and take ownership is really what we're trying to achieve here. So no presentation in the year 2024 going into 25 would be complete without saying, all right, what can we do to apply this? And so I use the query listed here, provide a solution, and I submitted it to ChatGPT, and I leveraged some of that information in the next few slides. So bear with me. And it provided me this answer. Here's a prioritized suggestion for a small food manufacturing company aiming to improve operations, reduce cost, along with potential savings and estimates. Because I thought, let's ground this presentation. Let's talk about what's in it for you. So what are some of the things you could be doing? Well, conduct a waste audit, implement portion control, look at packaging techniques, repurpose or recycle byproducts. One of my customers in Manitoba takes the waste product of French fry manufacturing by one of the large players in that space and turns it into food grade additives, in this case starch, and they do so as a upcycle product. They've taken something that was waste and turned it into a profit. And so that started out as a small organization 10 years ago, and today they're on an international scale, selling to all the major bakeries and food ingredient companies, and starch is used to bind snack food, salts and flavors to snack food. So it's an extensively positive outcome. So if you simply could manage a 5 to 15% raw material cost reduction, you're looking at easily close to $100,000. Or sorry, if you were using $100,000 of materials, 5 to 15,000, but that can scale extensively. Obviously, most companies are using more than 100,000 in raw materials, but depending on what it is. Conducting that waste audit, to implement it, track waste at each stage, identify sources of overproduction, defects, spoilage, involve employees to document. So there's a number of different examples, but if you're overfilling packages, make sure your equipment is calibrated. And so again, lean manufacturing principles typically show a 5 to 15% reduction in waste. Energy, as previously highlighted, switching to LED lighting, looking at turning off equipment or gearing it down, maintaining it for peak efficiencies. That can yield a 10 to 20% on energy bills. And again, an energy bill of 50,000 could save 5,000 to 10,000 immediately. Streamline production processes. So, I had them rank in ChatGPT high priority to medium priority items, but production processes, opportunity, eliminate the unnecessary steps in production, create workflows, train staff to identify bottlenecks, Now we're talking labor savings, which is extensive. Some of your most important and expensive people are involved in producing product and testing and in the lab. And so ultimately mapping those processes to understand what's happening and identifying bottlenecks could be a big benefit. And then looking at repetitive tasks, there's a lot of great opportunities out there. At the end of this presentation, I'll talk about opportunities for paying for some of these solutions. There's excellent programs in Canada and the US around these capabilities to improve your capabilities and streamline and make your business more lean. So automation definitely can reduce and costs and add value to your business. And obviously with staffing challenges, automation can really help. And getting your staff engaged in this continuous improvement approach and using some of these lean or Six Sigma principles can be really valuable. And so again, 2 to 5% savings can be achieved. So ultimately, the employee engagement seems to be the biggest cornerstone. And that's the people process, then technology. And so helping the people with that process, getting some incentives and rewards associated with it. These don't need to be big items. Recognition is a big award for most people, greater than money as a motivator, and peer recognition, and creating that culture as a result. So, an example of a company in Green Corps, a production worker suggested improving a hopper design to change it, and it created a substantial cost in reductions and in cost and materials. So they witnessed waste at its source and made changes and impacted that. Improving inventory. Many times companies are buying inventory in bulk. Sometimes these have expiry dates. And so, while buying in bulk can be really important, there's a counterbalance to that. And so understanding a commitment to buy over the course of a year versus receiving more than you actually need. And so there could be some various balances, but there could be 50,000 in savings, or or it could be smaller amounts, 5 to 10,000. It really just comes down to what it is you're dealing with and what write-offs you have related to stale inventory or possibly inventory that you're paying too much on spot buys for. So, some of those quick wins that you could get, conducting a waste audit and having people raise their hand and showing you those opportunities, looking at lighting. I know that one's pretty basic. Maybe many of you have done it already, but look a little deeper at some of those pieces of equipment and their age to see if they can be modified, improved, or through new equipment. There's incentives to help you pay for those things. There's quite a value and opportunity for potential savings. So then, when I ran my AI query, I also received the question, would you like further details on how to implement? And so I'll try to race through these as I'm realizing the end of my presentation time. But some of the things that were suggested was that you look at APS, Advanced Planning and Scheduling tools, or ERP systems for scheduling and waste tracking. ERP today also has an environmental impact in it. How much packaging am I using? What's the impact? It is a circular supply chain now, and we have to put value on not just what we ship, but also the materials that it's shipped in. And so there are also lots of lean training opportunities, but also some funding programs. So one company that we're familiar with called MentorWorks is just one example who suggest some of these programs, but all of these programs are available to any manufacturer of, in this example, food, which I honed in on. So the first is the Canada Job Grant, CJ, enter AG for Alberta, BG for BC, and etc. And then there's also small business financing programs. So if you needed a loan, there's up to $1 million out there at low interest or zero interest for expanding. All of these are Canada-wide. when you're looking at efficiencies or implementing technologies. So this could involve lean training, continuous improvement training. This could include bringing in the new technologies, including ERP, to help improve your business. If you have ever been to a Tim Hortons and you've ever filled up a hot chocolate for somebody you're with or yourself, our customer Dur Foods makes all the blended powders for that hot chocolate that is used in the Tim Hortons hot chocolate. They received grants that help them pay for their ERP and its implementation. So there, it can be done. It's out there. Canada wants you to be more efficient. And again, if you're in the US or have sites in the US or sites on growth, those programs exist there to a large extent as well. So lots of opportunities. These are just a few. I'll make sure that this is part of the deck that we share at the end. But you know, you show an interest in improvement, there is an opportunity to fund some of the more advanced improvements that your team might come up with. So when somebody says we're just stuck with old machinery and old production lines and old production processes, and yet they become aware of the opportunities to improve, this could be your enabling factor. And imagine how good it is for the business and the culture when your employees see you invest. So my slight bias on the end of this is that ERP, Enterprise Resource Planning, for over 50 years has been the go-to. As much as there's lots of little solutions out there, it's been the go-to to help companies measure and manage. And so setting up budgets and goals for the business could be part of your financial stream. Tracking customer interactions, case management, tracking feedback loops. If you're FDA controlled, you need to have programs in place to measure the impacts and the recallability of your product. Supply chain management, being able to plan and produce, formulate around your formulas and your recipes, or simply your bill of materials. Tracking the logistics, the warehouse, business intelligence, because it's laying down a transaction for everything that's happening in your business. You can now measure and manage against, well, the last time we ran it, it ran like this. How is this new improvement trending in terms of the effort and labor content and overhead content? So cost, track, schedule, going back to those early principles, ERP helps you give you a boost and managing and scheduling those resources. When it comes to the product I represent, which is Epicor, this is just an example of a fully integrated ERP in today's terms. I won't belabor this. If anyone wants to talk later, we can always have that chat offline. But think of it as cost, track, and schedule on steroids. And so the concept of crawl, walk, run is something we work with our clients on. You're small, you're a startup, you're at mid-level, or you've had technologies, it's time to replace it. Many companies are running on QuickBooks and spreadsheets, and when they make that leap to that next level, it gives them a lot more capability. Maintenance management on their machines, quality and inspection plans, measuring, out of control, materials both at receiving, in process, and final inspection. All of that and the logistics associated with that, it's hard to get good structured data if you're doing this on a spreadsheet. And for those futurists who are looking at AI as an opportunity, AI as a baseline requires good, reliable data. So as I wrap this up, we get to some Q&A. I would tell you that perhaps the most important people to involve in any major change project is going to be executive leadership. And if people can't articulate the message of the why and what we're doing at an executive level, I think it's pretty fundamental to believe that perhaps your staff, the people on the shop floor, the middle level management, they're not going to know any more clear than executive management. So we need to start with executive management, setting those clear objectives, communicating the vision, but also working with your teams to make sure that people understand what that impact would be to them and what accountability that would require, and then ultimately lead by example. And so keeping it positive, checking in with people, supporting the change that is that continuous improvement. So, what does this leave us? It leads us to maybe a little bit of Q&A here. So I'm open to opening up the lines, but ultimately, if you really want to take advantage of continuous improvement, commit, get people to understand the value and commit, create a team around it, and schedule some workshops, both educational, kind of like what we covered today, but also getting people brainstorming. So before I wrap this up, I guess I'm interested in what questions you might have out there.
All right, we're going to hold all the questions till the very end, John, after
Oh,
we
okay,
have
sorry.
our panel discussion, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
So next, we're going to do a panel. We have John will actually present in this or participate in this as well as Shawn and Wayne. Flavio Salinas, who is our Business Development Officer with Alberta Agriculture and Irrigation, will be moderating the questions. So I would like to hand it over to Flavio to start the questions with Wayne and Shawn and John.
Thank you, Dolores, and thank you, John, for a very interesting presentation. Yeah, I will ask 4 questions to our panel speakers, Shawn and Wayne, and I will go with Shawn first, and then with Wayne with the same question. So if you are ready, Shawn, I will
Yeah,
ask
I'm ready.
the first question to you. From your area of expertise, can you share your insights into the benefit of implementing continuous improvement in the field?
Yes.
So I think first of
Apologize.
go
Go
ahead,
ahead,
John.
Sean. No, please
Oh,
go ahead.
okay. Okay, so I think first of all, I do want to agree with what John said. There, done quite a bit of process improvement in various organizations. But I do want to point out the first thing for a successful continuous improvement rollout. It's really about the organizational mindset, right? And there's a lot of things that goes underneath it, in which John already touched on quite a bit: culture, your executive leadership, but and also like think about the methods, right? So methods of Lean, methods of Six Sigma, they're just methods. However, success has really shown in this area of improvement is really about the people, which John touched on as well. It's you need the people that is working the process to help with the improvement. And the benefits could range, from process type improvement, improvement in defects, the quality of your product that you're producing, and in a lot of what Lean and Six Sigma talks about is around throughput, right? How fast can you get things through your process without stoppages or wastages? So which leads into the ability to produce better quality products, as well as the ability to improve your overall financial situation as well from a continuous improvement perspective.
Thank you,
John,
Shawn.
you something to add?
Oh
Um,
no, I'd have to agree. I think it's about the people side, and I think many times we get stuck on language. Sometimes Lean has, this, especially when you drive down the Toyota principles. For most people, it's like, whoa, hang on a second. This is a lot. I'm not sure I'm ready to digest it. I'm not comfortable with the language, and I think bringing it down to just getting people to engage on the basics, the names, the characteristics, keeping it non-technical, um, going after why are we doing this and what's important. You can take everybody through university, but you're not going to give your 10-year-old child a degree. It's about we're all going to crawl, walk, run through this together, and I think that can be powerful to the culture as well. So the improvements I've seen is companies have doubled their profits, doubled their business. I have a client that shared that because they had the processes in place, last year they actually doubled their output, which means hopefully that they doubled their profitability. But their sales went from 10 million to 20 million. They added nobody in the office, and the systems and processes they had in place we're able to scale completely. Now, knock on wood that we could all be so lucky to A, have that situation and opportunity, but B, the systems and processes in place. And I think every business needs to commit to the idea that we'll never get there if the opportunity, luck favors the prepared mind, but there's no luck about being prepared. You need to make a conscious decision about having things set the table for that change. And I think that's the impacts I've seen have been really interesting because those who are ready to take advantage of it, the profitability is there. Otherwise, we're throwing people and inefficient approaches to things, and it's just not happening with the right outputs or the right outcomes.
Thank you, John. Now we'll go with the same question for Wayne. Wayne, are you ready? So the question for you is, you are muted, Wayne. So the question for you is, from your area of expertise, can you share your insights into the benefit of implementing continuous improvement in the field?
Yeah, thanks. I think I come a little bit of a different tangent from both John and Shawn in that obviously I'm going to apply it from a safety perspective. I think that if we look statistically at organizations that are struggling with safety as a whole, this goes right back to what both John and Shawn have said. It comes back to culture. It's about defining the culture within your organization, and is it driven by the leadership side of things. And so when we use concepts like Kaizen or 5S or any of these kind of continuous improvement programs, what we're really trying to do is eliminate waste, risk. We're doing, hazard assessments. Again, when I look at 5S, some people will kind of go off script and say, well, there's 6S. Well, no, S means safety is integrated into all of the 5S's, and by eliminating those inefficiencies, by having a much more organized and sustained, orderly organization from for all aspects of your business, you can see the incremental positive impacts that it has. We've seen it statistically that slips, trips, falls, which are one of the leading causes of compensable claims within organizations, you can completely almost eliminate it by implementing 5S as a continuous improvement strategy. And it doesn't take a whole lot to make those improvements. And what I like what John talked about is that when you're teaching it, you don't need a university degree. This is the greatest thing about Lean and 5S. Yes, there's lots of great education and training that's available to you, but you have to look at manufacturing. Manufacturing employs a lot of young workers, new workers, and as well, people from other countries with different languages, different cultures. And so we have to keep these concepts very understandable, very attainable, and simplify it so that everybody can really see those incremental changes and celebrate the success as we go along. So you have the long-term participation by workers. So I think if you look at continuous improvement as a strategy within your organization, I think take bite-sized chunks of this. Don't try to eat this elephant all in one giant bite. It's almost impossible. It becomes overwhelming. And I think in doing that, making sure that you really listen to your audience, your people on all levels. Yes, strategy of safety culture or culture is driven by leadership, but we really have to be listening to the shop floor supervisors, the workers. That's why I love about Kaizen, is because when you're in those kind of cells and actually doing work, you're wanting to engage the workers because they're the ones that have all the nuggets. They're the ones that are doing all the workarounds and kind of figuring things out when things aren't working. And if we can just draw that out and really make their ideas part of the solutions, that's where you get the buy-in, and that's where you really get that incremental continuous improvement gain. So that's just my perspective.
Thank you, Wayne. So we can go now to the second question. Shawn, what are the areas of production you see more improvements being required in the continuous improvement journey?
I would say in my previous role, I would say a lot of companies are driving towards data, and obviously I'm biased towards data. But more companies are searching on
how to do things better, faster at a reduction of cost, time, as well as resources, right? So a lot of the stuff is going to be driven from a data perspective of what John talked about, like how do you measure it? And measurements are data driven. So, in one of the manufacturing plants that we visited in my previous role, we were working on adding sensory data to a 35-year-old machinery. And the sensory data sensory can just scan the items being produced and just tell if the production is having consecutive defects, right? And then the moment it does those detection, the sensory will automatically stop the line and create alerts for the team to come review as well as do some of the quality checks. So, and then from that on, it could also understand what the production line looks to do in terms of whether it's producing batches of defects or hundreds of defects, right? And reducing the cost of quality control, right? Having just a person standing there looking at it, you can add sensory data to produce as well as look at defects that way. So I think from my perspective, a lot of the improvements as well as what you talk about as the journey, it's driven from a data perspective where people start to look at the micro information about production lines, resources, cost, even inventory costs as well, right? And that comes from what John talked about as well, the whole comprehensive look of your system, right? You can't just look at solely what your inventory looks like, but not at your production line. So the improvements that you can see I think, will be actually driven from a data perspective.
Thank you, Shawn. And we'll go with the same question to Wayne. So, what are the areas of production you see more improvements being required in the continuous improvement journey? You are mute, Wayne.
My apologies. Again, just kind of drawing from my years of being in manufacturing, and now we support all food and beverage manufacturers here in the province of BC, and one of the things that we really focus on to help organizations is really around that. The workplace hazard assessments, and where we spend a lot of our time is by identifying and doing those on a regular basis. The pinpoint of the physical, chemical, biological, we kind of do the whole harm for employees. This helps us, really prevent accidents, which ultimately, improves the overall organization because it's a mental side of things, as we know, when we have workers that are getting injured on a regular basis or the near misses are not recorded. These really can change the dynamics within an organization. Does an organization put that safety first and have a safety first mindset in the prevention of accidents, actually, investing in safety? One thing I always say is, like, there's never really a line item within a profit and loss statement for safety. We've always been, in some cases, a bit more reactive, and we spend money when something happens, as opposed to putting money and innovation in. We're seeing a lot of innovation. A lot of companies now are looking at robots, cobots, a lot of ways to take away the pinch points for workers, and but ultimately it does have a major improvement, obviously, in productivity. And ultimately, I guess where I'm pushing this whole thing is that it really does promote that safety culture kind of mindset. So as we're doing the continuous improvements, we're adapting new technologies, we're creating, we're looking at ergonomic assessments. One of the plants that I opened up in Edmonton, one of the big things that the U of A had come to me with was a challenge on, really, we had designed this amazing plant, but had we taken in the worker ergonomics into the entire assessment prior to. And so we went through a bit of a study on that. And as we went along, sure, we had great material handling. Sure, we had great positioning of of our equipment, but we really didn't take in the ergonomic impact to the workers on an ongoing daily level. And so through the study, we had actually made some improvements around some of the new positioning of the machinery, but in as well the lighting, the air quality, the just a lot of things that we didn't really think about, the overexertion, reaching, stretching, things that we kind of don't really take maybe as much of a time to look at. And so we were getting the feedback from the workers, but we were also getting a bit of time trial studying. And I think that by also incorporating those regular risk assessments, we can really look for areas in where we can do those improvements, certainly around continuous improvements, where we can look at eliminating risk through automation or semi-automation, robots and cobots. And ultimately, this is what's going to improve and continue to improve our workplaces that we're working in.
Thank you, Wayne. John, would you like to comment on this question?
Yeah, I think the culmination of what Shawn and Wayne have said is that from my perspective, it's a manifold of productivity. So is there one production area alone that can be improved? Yes. If all you want is one, you can get it. I think what we're talking about here, though, is building a culture that values identifying some of these areas of waste, and in doing so, shining some sunlight on it, as they say, right? Let's put some focus on this. And when I think safety needs to be a part of everything we do, particularly in manufacturing, but I don't think we're limited to that. And I think when you said it, Wayne, I mean, productivity. If you think about why does a business why do they start a business? They want to create a profitable outcome with an opportunity that they feel that they can achieve perhaps better than somebody else, or that I can do that, and I can compete locally in my town, my province, my country. Beyond that, I can go much beyond that. And I think, the focus today for Canada is also, just taking in a recent economic presentation here in the fall of 2024, was that as Canadians, the only way to overcome a recession, which is a potential outcome of the future, is that we really get serious about our exports. Now, how do I do that? How do I troubleshoot that? Have I done it before? Well, let's use that same innovation that the founders of the business started with and said, let's look at it with innocent eyes and no preconceived ideas, and say, okay, if we need to accomplish these outcomes in terms of delivering product, producing a safe work environment, this manifold now has multiple streams and focus groups. I've heard, years ago, they used to call them quality circles, and people looking at different opportunities. But I think owning continuous improvement, I think it's gone past this, hey, there's 2 or 3 people in the organization that are in charge of this. No, I think it's 5 or 6 areas of the business that own their department and their role in the company and what it means to improve that. And it can almost become a positive competitive approach. So my short answer would be, I think all areas. I think all areas of a company can be improved when you use this focus. Remember that the opposite side of the spectrum is I don't care. So as soon as I start to care, whether it be one department or many departments, I'm going to start to see, hopefully, with, again, support from management and a direction of vision of what we're trying to accomplish. If we improve, we'll stay in business. If we stay in business and keep improving, we'll become more profitable. And if all those things happen, you'll still have a job, we'll have customers, and the value exchange that we bring to the marketplace makes sense. And so I think that we kind of go high right into the low, but I think there's some real value when we apply ourselves in this way, which oddly enough isn't that common. And I'd resist the approach to just leave it to one department or one couple people in charge of it. Get the grassroots involved, get that culture of diversity and perspective. And I think what we'll find is there's a lot of people with a lot of experience we haven't been tapping into in our organizations.
Thank you, John. So here is the third question for you, Shawn. What is the main challenge and main opportunity you have experienced by implementing continuous improvement?
I think from my experience, I would say the main and probably the hardest challenge with any continuous improvement implementation is really the organization mindset. It's hard, and I think John touched on it really well. It's hard to tell people there's a better way, and when they're ingrained on the day to day, and it's doing what they do best, right? It's hard for them to take time out of their daily work to look at improvement on how their daily work can improve. And also it John also touched on this is moving from a vision stage of we can improve this company to implementation. That's a really hard start for a lot of people, right? And it's the change management within it is so difficult to manage, and it's across all levels of the organization because a lot of people that undergo continuous improvement or change, they always start from the place of I don't know where and I don't know how. And because there's a saying, we've always done it this way, right? So a lot of people have the mindset, we've always done it this way. It's working. Why fix something that's not broken? So I think that's probably the main challenge that I've seen, or at least I've experienced so far with a lot of organizational change. And it's not particularly ingrained with just manufacturing. Like I've worked in banking and insurance and finance, and even the service improvement has the same habits, I would say, with people that's undergoing change. However, I think the main opportunities are, data and technology, right? So, everything that we know today that we do well and whatever we do, technology has a huge role in playing a part from the machinery to your computation to automation. It's all technology driven. So I would say, within the last 10 years, we have seen so much technology improvement as well as advancement compared to the previous 60 years, right? So that last 10 years have this scale of exponential technology advancement, from drones to robotics to vision, and now we're talking about quantum computing, where you're able to make tons and tons of decisions for any of the machineries, sensories, and the talk of the town, data, AI, machine learning, right? So I think technology has this huge role in the future that we do, and it could span across all the departments, from your finance team to the shop front to safety. I think technology has this huge capability to. Oh, am I still lost? Anyways, I think technology has this huge capability. Oh, am I
Okay.
lost?
Uh,
Do you want to try
Yes.
turning off your camera, Shawn? Maybe if that might make a difference.
Sure. Sorry about that. So I think technology, leveraging technology is probably a good path. And, it could range from softwares to machinery automation. And it's really about the adaptation of these technology is endless, right? As long as you have a mindset that you are able to see improvements, you will be able to leverage these technologies to help you in your continuous improvement journey. Sorry about the drop connections.
that's okay. Thank you, Shawn. Same question for you, Wayne. So, what is the main challenge and main opportunity you have experienced by implementing continuous improvement?
Well, I hate to say it, but I think people is our biggest challenge. One of the observations that we spend a lot of time on, and I have over my 25, 30 years now, is really developing people. And I call it kind of the IQ versus EQ, right? IQ kind of gets you there, but EQ get you where you want to go. And the challenge with that emotional intelligence is we as leaders need to spend more time with developing more leaders and developing the ability to handle difficult situations. Because, like Shawn was saying, I absolutely agree. Technology, innovation, AI, all these things are really going to improve so many parts of how we do business. But if we don't spend time, we have 5 generations of workers currently in the workforce today. We've got from the boomers to the Gen Alphas. And the challenge is that the mass amount of the boomers are within shooting range. I mean, they're close to retirement. And that's going to leave a huge vacuum of knowledge, experience, leadership, supervision, and we need to spend and create tools and create a dialogue with emerging leaders and giving them the skills, the emotional intelligence. Resilience is a big thing. Mental health claims have gone, I think they're up 85% over that of the last 2 years here, certainly in British Columbia. And I think statistically we're seeing it's going to be about about a $5 billion cost annually to employers across Canada on mental health. And the challenge is about creating resiliency, creating emotional intelligence, having the ability to upskill workers, provide them with the ability to make just good decisions, working with other people, handling conflict, negotiation. Machines don't do that. Machines are very logic. It's very path forward. But what we find right now is that because we have all these, as I said, 5 different generations in the workforce, because we have a lot of folks that are coming here from other countries with different, levels of education, different levels of language skills. Right now, we're having to lower a lot of the courses that we develop. We have to lower the reading level down to about a grade 7 level because we have so many workers that are in the workforce that are, still struggling with basic comprehension of reading. And so I think us understanding that is going to be important, and how we work with workers in the future and upskilling them, getting their literacy higher, getting their machine learning, their understanding of technology higher, but also interacting with other people, which is really important. So this is the challenges, but I also see it as the opportunity, right? But we don't have a lot of really good programs in Canada, and certainly here in British Columbia, to really skill. That's one of the things that our organization is working on, is how do we take them from a worker from when they've kind of got the we notice them as emerging leaders, or emerging supervisors, and then they become supervisors, and then they become managers, and then they become people leaders. But that path along the way, giving them the skills, because most of us just kind of, I don't know about you, John, but I kind of just, learned just failure after failure, and triumph and failure and more failure and triumph, and finally you get there, right? But not everybody has that same resiliency. But we need to kind of teach and give workers skills in that area so that they can move forward in their path to becoming leaders and eventually CEOs, entrepreneurs, etc. I think that's a really big gap, a skill gap that we have. And so it's a really big opportunity for all of us to really kind of lean in, like John and the rest of us that we're doing here today. We're giving some of our knowledge back because we've learned through those mistakes and failures, but ultimately have led to the successes that we have. So, yeah.
Thank you, Wayne. John, would you like to provide your insights?
Yeah, I think you, both Wayne and the team here has really, Shawn, have brought some really good thoughts to this. And I think it helped me. I was making some notes prior as you asked the question, and that's actually the beauty of not having the questions up front. It was actually a little bit more real time. I think, it's definitely people. I have to agree with Wayne, but, conversely, what Shawn highlighted was continuous improvement being about, getting use of the data, utilization of the data, getting that ROI. What does the data give me? It's going to give me valuable information for decision support. And so while that may not be important to the line worker, but management who needs decisions, we need to marry those two. And I think what we're coming to is this realization with AI and technology and automation and all the good things like cobots, which are very much part of many of our customers' organizations today. It's not about the technology, it's about what we do with it. And I kind of go back to what I like to frame it up as anytime we're talking about improvements, we're really talking about people, helping your people digest and develop processes that are scalable for the future that tame the technology. So people, process, technology. I know we've heard this before, but I think when you really start to own it a little bit, you start to keep it simple. And so, you know, the world I come from is we get RFPs with 3,000 question lines, and it's, can your system do these things? And it's wonderful. Yes, we can check those boxes. Far down the line is, what does this look like for the business? And so I'll go back to culture, you know, executive sponsorship. Things aren't going to happen unless the culture is ready to consume it. If you know, if I'll use the example of that's easy in the extreme is some companies make fractions of a penny per part. And so it's about driving production and performance and so on. And yes, productivity that comes from some of these industries like automotive is important to us, but is it right for us? And so again, continuous improvement then right sizes it for your business. But by getting management and executive sponsorship in place, by educating and investing in your people, you can create this culture. I think continuous improvement is the ultimate investment in people, which has the biggest payback for management. And I don't think everybody sees it that way. I don't know if the line worker sees it as perhaps a burden if it's not sold to them effectively. Management feels it's a cost because I can't see how it's going to help me produce more product because I'm taking them out and putting them in a meeting or you know, stopping production. So ultimately it's about putting those tools into action that you know, means that we value the culture, the new culture shift, which would be measuring to manage. If everybody adopted the approach that we can't improve anything unless we measure it. So you start with that people, process, technology, and you shift it over to what does it mean to me? It means that we can't improve unless we know where we are and where we want to go. And so if we start to measure these things and we start to put some metrics in front of the leaders or even the production line workers to say, here's our goal, this is what we're heading for. Help me get there. Well, high five, and there has to be some perceived benefit to that. And the baseline is I get to keep my job, but it could be obviously a lot more robust than that. It could be a pizza party for the team that does the best. You know, it could be as simple as that. But I think with all the talk of AI and technology, I think we start into a language and a rabbit hole that takes people in the wrong direction. And so I think we pull up and start talking about outcomes. What are we trying to achieve? What outcome do I envision if we work together? And then move through that, because if you start with the technology, you'll probably get lost along the way. There's a lot of detours, a lot of focuses, and you know, if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So sometimes there's some very elegant, simple solutions that are process oriented. Sometimes they're process augmented by technology. But if we put the people back into this, I think the fear of the future, the fear of losing jobs, which is crazy in that we don't have enough people to fulfill the jobs we have, we need to take the people we have, as Wayne said, we need to upskill them. We need to invest in them. And when you get that exchange of value that's greater than just a paycheck, I think you start to see some real give back items and opportunities for industry and manufacturing. And I think when you really scratch at the surface, or sorry, scratch beyond the surface of some of the more successful companies out there, some of which we've had the honor of working with, and some we've helped augment their transformation by delivering what we provide. I think you'd find that at the heart of that is they care for the people, they value the people, and they invest in the people. And in doing so, they get a robust outcome. Sorry for the length of that answer, but I'm passionate about the people side. And as much as technology has been part of my career journey, part of this, as Wayne pointed out, we're all giving back. I really think that we can demystify it, but we can also alienate if we continue to speak a language that isn't easily understood. And so bring it back to the principles. If we want to be profitable, if we want to have growth, if we want to achieve better rankings with our customers, our audits, all of these things, we need to take care of the people to help make those processes happen.
Thank you, John. Now we can go to the last question. So I will start with Shawn. Um, can you provide your opinion on lean manufacturing versus continuous improvement in your field of expertise?
I would say I probably had the least experience in manufacturing. However, I think from a lean perspective, lean, it's a method, right? It's a methodology, it's a training. Whereas I think continuous improvement, it's really about a mindset, right? Where you frame what you want to do, to what John has pointed out, right? Is what's the outcomes that you're trying to drive. So from a lean manufacturing perspective, it's trying to learn the methods of how to improve, and then you combine it with the continuous improvement. It's really about how do I improve the things that's around me. And one of the simplest way I can describe it is, the continuous improvement mindset is really about questioning everything you do, right? And if you question everything that you do, you would find gaps within your environment that you can definitely improve. But I do want to point out a small caveat with continuous improvement and lean manufacturing is you also have to be a little bit of a realist, right? When you're trying to attempt improvement, right? Continuous improvement, it's not a leap of faith, right? And leap of faith are rarely successful. And a lot of people think, oh, just because the organization has gone through a lean program, we're going to be successful at continuous improvement, right? So I think a lot of the successes that John Wayne pointed out from a continuous improvement perspective is a lot of organization that go through this continuous improvement journey and mindset is they focus on the small and incremental improvements, and they don't focus on these big bangs where we drop this in and we're going to be really, really successful. They focus on improving daily routines, habits, where it creates that frame of mind, like baby steps, like it's like a kid trying to learn how to ride a bike, right? You're not going to be successful the first day. You're going to learn the pedals, you're going to learn the handles, and it's a incremental journey for a lot of organizations. And the last thing I do want to touch on is I think nobody really likes change. I think everybody that talks about change, even change practitioners, they don't like the change unless they're the one initiating them. And myself included, even though I'm a change professional some capacity, I don't like change too much as well, right? We embrace it, but I think the thought and the mindset behind it is we want to embrace change, and we want to embrace the ability to continuously improve.
Thank you, Shawn. Same question for you, Wayne. So can you provide your opinion on lean manufacturing versus continuous improvement in your field of expertise?
Sure. I enjoyed Sean's comment. Everybody loves change as long as it has nothing to do with me, right? So, and we do know this. And in my 30 years of being in manufacturing plants all around the world and different cultures and different types of manufacturing, yeah, I would agree. There is always a propensity for pushback on change, because one, it's new. One, I've been doing this so long. Usually you get the worker pushing back saying, look, I've been doing it so long. Why do I need to change? I've got my workarounds. It works fine for me. Why are you measuring me? Are you trying to fire me? No, we're just simply, can we do it better? So the whole idea around lean, and I've been a lean practitioner for over 30 years, and its close relationship between continuous improvement is they're very distinct, right, in their methodologies. But when we look at lean, obviously it's really about eliminating that waste, right? It's a hard line to look at how do we, you know, um, look at our manufacturing process. And I kind of use this idea of hope is not a strategy, right? We don't, you can't get things better through hope, right? And so it really is a systematic approach of eliminating waste or those non-value activities. Whereas for me, continuous improvement is really a broader concept. It emphasizes like incremental changes ongoing across all areas, where we do at Kaizen, we're kind of looking at those cell improvements that we can make incrementally, worker driven, worker conversation, and so for me, it's the two are important. One can't be kind of more than the other. I think lean is the framework, and kind of continuous improvements is kind of the stuff in between, the definition, the defining concepts. But I think when you have an organization that clearly understands the vision, that has to be clear. Have a very clear systematic framework, and then really looking at how do you get all levels of your organization to understand the vision, understand the framework, and get them involved in the decision making. Because look, buy-in is all about, look, is there something in it for me? I like what John said, right? It's what gets measured gets managed, but what gets incentivized gets done, right? And so I've been a big proponent on, hey, look, we're going to try this, but one thing we did on one, it was a little bit unorthodox, but we had actually wanted to do a bit of a continuous improvement program on a cabinet manufacturing line, and one of the things that we really were getting the buy-in, the ideas. I think people were holding all their best ideas close to their chest, and so we said, look, we'll pay anybody's idea that we implement. We're going to pay $1,000 to that individual's that idea that gets implemented. And so we had this big round robin. Everyone's like, $1,000, not a Tim Hortons, gift card. This is meat and potatoes. And so what happened was we had a flurry of ideas, and we had a flurry of conversation, and some were discounted and some were like, yeah, that's good. But ultimately one idea did come forward, and it was the one that we implemented, and it absolutely made and John, to your point, we measured it, and it was like a 28% improvement. And this was something that one of those senior workers had been holding close to his chest for a long time. He knew it, and he was right, because he'd been doing it day in, day out. But when we incentivized him, he said in the end, well, the money was great, but it was just nice to be heard. And so in the end, he got $1,000. But the payback to us as an organization was huge. It was way beyond the $1,000. But because we were able to foster dialogue, buy-in, communication, and ultimately a sense of ownership, I mean, that's change management right there. So short answer, long answer, that's my answer.
Thank you, Wayne. Before we go to the question and answer session, would you like to provide quick comments, John?
Sure. So, I think there's some great responses there. It's a great participation from the panel, and I'm looking forward to some Q&A. But I'd have to agree with Wayne's approach that, for me, I think lean is the what, and continuous improvement, CI, is the how, right? And I think what we're really talking about is change, because there's an idea of how to do it better. Using a lean framework is the high level idea, but getting to these incentivized suggestions is golden, right? And so ultimately culture plays such a role. And I just want to remind everybody that in the day of, 1,000 perspectives of what employees and management need to be thinking about these days, the definition of management is getting things done through others. And so there's nobody more important than management, particularly the executive, because people look up to that person and they need to somewhat embody or paint that vision that can then be driven through the organization. So, while we think about comparing the two, I think the two work really, really well together. Lean and continuous improvement are marriage made in heaven. Creating those entrepreneurs, as Wayne was discussing, those people that are the next leaders in the organization, the cream will rise to the top. The people that show a passion through these processes, there's so many, this is the manifold of benefits, is that we can start to spot in the organization the value that comes out of this distillation of new ideas and this new level of engagement that may not have been there in the culture before. But ultimately, when people feel that they've been heard, I think they'll walk many miles for you, or as they used to say, go to war for you. They will go the distance. They will put in the extra effort, and ultimately, that has to be owned by management. And so you have a chance to make that culture happen. So that would just be my closing comment on that.
Thank you, John. And with that, I will turn it to you, Dolores, for the question and answer sessions. Thank you,
All
all
right.
of you.
Thanks, Flavio. So let's go to our Q&A here. So first question is, for a small company with 1 or 2 employees, what would be something they could start with?
Can I take a stab at that?
Any one of you are more than welcome to answer.
Sure. So I think for a really small company with a couple of employees, is you could use some of the levers that John and Wayne has talked about is incentivization. You could start a small program that everybody within your organization has $50 to do an improvement, any improvement, right? Obviously, you have a cap on and whatnot, but you can be quite amazed at what $50 can do to improve a lot of your processes or even things within your organization. So that's one area. The other one is really think about what type of knowledge or framework that you want to implement within your organization, right? So to what John and Wayne has touched upon, education, it's one of the cornerstones, right? If they don't know how to improve, how would you expect them to really improve any of the continuous improvement ideas that they have within an organization?
I'm just going to put in one caveat to that. I think, to your point, Shawn, the job grant, the Canadian job grant, is a great way to offset some of those costs, and I think it's really an underutilized program that is available to employers to help educate and take the cost. Here we call it the BC Jobs Grant, and I think it's across Canada. There's different types of it, but there's a lot of help from government on providing funding to support educational training and some of these programs that you're talking about. And I think John's got probably more information about that. But I think, just a simplified approach, just don't get too overcomplicated. But yeah, that kind of be my quick answer.
I'll throw in the mix that I think the opportunity to just paint your vision and spend some time with the people, whether you're small or large, that culture could be so important. And it starts day one when you start a business. So put some value around pausing for a moment and speaking to the team and making sure that your vision is known and that you reward. I like the reward idea, whatever that reward is. Sometimes just having that meeting rather than pounding it out on a machine or a process could be part of that reward. But just show that those are the things that you value and ask for that feedback. And when people believe they have a voice, I think it's super valuable to the organization because someday that organization is going to scale and you're going to want those next leaders to become those entrepreneur leaders, or at the very least, creating a champion of a topic or a department, um, which embody the values of what you're trying to achieve as a company.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. We have one more question and we're close to the end of our time here. So if there is any more questions, please send them in quickly. So here's my next one. It is actually addressed to Wayne. And it's Wayne, when implementing a change and adding robots, is there different types of safety considerations for ensuring that safety is considered in the process improvement?
That's a great question, and it's something that's being defined right now with a lot of regulators right now around the safety requirements. Obviously, we know that robots require, obviously, they're behind a cage of perimeter, they're perimeter switching. For it, cobots obviously are where we work right up and close, and we have the ability to slow the robots down based on how close we get to them. But the simple idea here is we are looking to make sure that where there is no what we call just the term went out of my head for a second there. It's an interlock system. So where we don't have interlocks, where we obviously as a worker coming too close to or coming in proximity to the robot, if those interlocks are not approved by the regulators currently right now, then we are seeing that there are a lot of requirements to have these completely sealed off where no workers can obviously go in when energized. And in fact, there's a full lockout tagout requirement to de-energize these systems when coming into proximity of the robots at any time. It's something that we're finding that it's still not well defined here in Canada at least, and I think that you would definitely want to be reaching out to your local regulator to see if there is any compliance requirements that they'll have. Obviously, there's a lot of definitions still being defined around the cobot side of things. We are in negotiate or consultation with our current regulator here to define that, because there is that gray area, but ultimately what we're saying is that if there's any potential risk to workers for injury and or other, then we have to put in safeguarding systems to prevent those injuries from happening. So I can also follow up with a bit of literature that we've got out for our employers that might be able to provide a little bit more defined guidance on that, if that would be of value.
It would be great, Wayne, if you would share that with me, and then I can
Yep,
share it with everybody else.
perfect.
Fantastic.
Will do.
All right, so we have no more questions. People, you guys just shared so much information. People got what they needed from this. So I'd like to say thank you to all of you for sharing your knowledge with us today. To everybody on the webinar, thank you for taking time out of your busy day and sharing it with us. You will receive a short survey at the end of this webinar, and your help will be great in helping us determine what other webinars we should organize for you. Survey will take you like less than a minute, really. So thank you again, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks, guys.